So you are at the playground with your toddler and it's time to go home, it's time for dinner, but your toddler is not wanting to leave. And so then you have meltdown, you have crying, you have tears, and it's just no fun for everyone. And so today I have with me Noel Anderson. She is a board certified music therapist, and she has a ton of ideas on using music to transition with your toddler and help them to transition from one activity to another. And a lot of times the activities that we're transitioning from are preferred activity, like they're playing or something like that, or they're in the bathtub, and then you're transitioning to them to an activity that they don't prefer. And so we're going to show you how to bridge that gap here in this conversation. So Noel, I'm curious, is there a song that you use? I know you have kids. Is there a song that you use with them that works really well, or with your clients in music therapy?
Yeah, I'd say my go-to song is, and I don't even know the title of it, but it goes, walking, 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 hop, 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 running, 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 now we stop. And so you can change the actions. Sometimes I let my kids pick their own actions so that way you get buy-in. Um,
Cool.
and it kind of switches them from that preferred activity to what you need them to move to go
Yes.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So you get that choice making and buy-in, and you can still, get allow them to get some energy out.
Yeah.
Generally, our kids, tend to need to get that energy out,
Yeah.
um, and also with the stop at the end. You're
Mhm.
working on impulse control, which is always a skill that kids need to work on.
Yeah.
And following directions and listening. So you got a lot of things wrapped in there in just that little transition.
I
Transition.
love that. I love that because it gets them moving instead of just thinking about transition like, I don't want to, I don't want to. Like, that's all in our head. But then moving is taking the first step, literally. Walking, walking.
Exactly.
Cool. I love that. I've never heard that transition song before.
Oh, it's a good one.
That's so good. Did you make it up or did you hear it somewhere?
No, I heard it I have like a kids Pandora station.
Cool.
And there's a lot of different versions of it.
Okay.
But I heard it on there. I was like, oh, that is a great song. So I use that with my kids all the time.
That's
And
cool.
even just for, moving, just to move about in some kind of
Yeah.
structured way.
Yeah.
It's a really good song for that too.
That's cool. So what are some of the other options that you use for the actions, like walking, hop?
Yeah.
What other ones do you give them choices between?
If you can't remember that song,
Yeah.
then think about songs that you already know. So like Ants Go Marching.
Oh,
Um, and I think it's always a good idea to personalize songs. When you sing a kid's name, it gets their attention.
mm-hmm.
So instead of saying the ants go marching one by one, you could say, John goes marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah. And filling in that name is like, oh, you're singing about me. And you're saying I'm marching. Okay, I guess I should march. And you march in the direction that you need to go.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing, you can give choices. Oh,
Yeah.
should we march? Should we jump? So John goes jumping one by one, and just
Yeah.
long.
I love that. So they feel like they're in control instead of you being like, it's time to go. We're leaving now. Come on, like grab my hand, that type of thing. You're like, and it just takes probably a couple extra seconds. And
Yeah,
they feel like they have control. Like, oh, I'm picking which one I want to do. It's my choice.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times that transition battle is a fight for control.
Yeah.
So if you can give them a sense of control by making choices,
Mhm.
that oftentimes just that lessens the tantrums and
Yeah.
meltdown.
Yeah, they're switching from defense mode, like, I don't want to what do you want to do? This or this? And then they're saying, I want to. So it's kind of like
Exactly.
switching from negative to positive, even just in our language, like, I want to do this. I want to jump. And then you're like, okay, let's jump. And then they're, kind of distracted from what they didn't want to do.
And especially as a parent, if you do anything silly, that
Mhm.
always gets your kids' attention. So if you're
Mm.
jumping with them and marching with them, like sometimes if my kids aren't paying attention, I just start singing the song and I start marching and jumping and hopping and running. Then
Yeah,
they join.
of
You know,
course.
I start the movement and
Mm.
they follow.
I love that. That's so cool. So choice making, making it personal by saying their name. What else? What other kinds of tips do you have?
I think that a song for cleaning up is always, you always need that in your bag of
Mhm.
tricks.
Yeah.
So there's several familiar ones that I think we know, and one is what's that Barney one? Uh,
Clean, clean up.
yes,
Everybody everywhere. Clean up.
everybody
Yeah.
knows that one. So you
Yeah.
use that one. And there's a really great Daniel Tiger one. It's like clean up, pick up, put away, clean up every day. That's literally the only part that I know. So I just sing that over and over again.
It works.
But yeah, it's like a little like trigger, like, oh, it's time
Yeah.
to clean up. With some kids, I will just say, that need extra assistance. I
Mhm.
might just sing kind of a chant, like it's
Mhm.
time to put it back, it's time to put it back, and just kind of repeat that. Or maybe more specifically, like put the ball in the box, put the ball in the box, and
I love
might give examples of if there's a whole bunch of balls everywhere, we'll just put them all in, and
it.
let them follow that song with their,
Mhm.
after you model that.
I love
Uh,
that option because you're introducing, as a speech language pathologist, that's more language that they're getting. Put the ball in the box. So
yeah,
a direction, in and yeah,
yeah,
nouns, all kinds of language there. And
yeah. And then
following the direction, yeah.
exactly. When you put it in the structure of a song, it makes it a little more fun. And
Mhm.
it can help with the processing of the language because you're
Yeah.
always saying it the same way, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I want to shift to doing more songs in transition time with my clients because sometimes what I'll do is more language based and less fun. I mean, it's fun in its own way, but sometimes I'll have them take whatever their toy, here's a pen, and I'll be like, we'll have the toy bag that they're putting it in or the bin, and I'll say, okay, take the dinosaur and go up, 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 drop it. And so they're like, it's a new way to put something away. It's not just like, okay, stuff it in the bag. It's like fun and different and kind of gets their attention because it's new and it's more fun to hear it crash than it is to just put it away. So,
I think, yeah, and when you have that, like the vocal inflection that
yeah.
mirrors the word up, up, up,
Oh,
up, up, woo,
I love
it
that.
gives it more context and
Yeah.
you're able to understand that language more.
Yeah, it is kind of musical, I guess. Yeah, that makes sense. Like the way that I'm doing it is a little bit, my intonation and prosody kind of goes up and down when I do that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What else, what other kind of tips do you have for transitioning? Why is it important to teach kids to transition?
I think when we go back to kind of development,
Mhm.
kids, they're born without they can't self-regulate on their own. They rely on their parents or
Mm.
whoever their attachment figure is. They rely on that person to help them regulate even just their body temperature and all those little
Yeah.
needs, which includes their emotions, and that is related to transition eventually. um,
Mhm.
and so I think it's important to help teach them how to self-regulate. That is one of the main components of why it's difficult to transition. Just that
Mm.
being flexible and being able to change, and change is just it's so hard for even us as adults.
Yeah.
But our kids are just learning to regulate their body system. So I think that's why it is one reason why it's important to teach them how to transition.
And plus, they'll be transitioning the rest of their life. They're going to transition from kindergarten to first grade and then first grade to second. And even within, first grade, they're going to transition from math class to PE, to lunch, to recess, to library, and things. They're transitioning all the time from things that they like to do to things that they don't like as much to do, back to things that they like. But if they only can transition from things that they like to things that they like, then you're missing out on realistic life, doing things, doing the dishes, doing, going on a trip, doing the laundry. Like, we all have to do that through the rest of our lives. So starting them out with this solid foundation is going to carry through to the rest
Right.
of their life.
Right. I think for some kids, it's helpful to give them a warning. So, like, all right, there's 10 minutes left, and then we're going to do,
Yeah.
go to the doctors.
Yeah.
And sometimes using first, then, and then language, first we're going to play with our toys, and then in 10 minutes, we're going to go to the doctor. And then in 5 minutes, and then we got 1 more minute.
Yeah.
Some kids that lessens anxiety, some kids that increases anxiety.
You're like,
So
how many more minutes?
yeah. Kind of gotta feel that out and
Yeah.
see how that works with your child. But
Yeah.
but using a song in each of those 10-minute, 5-minute, 1 minute, that can, using that positive tone and a song can kind of make it a more enjoyable, or just not a negative thing as much,
Right.
So that can be, kind of think of it like a little jingle
Yeah.
that like triggers, like, and I didn't think about it beforehand, but just like, we got 10 minutes left and then we'll go to the doctor or something. Whatever.
Make it up on the fly. Yes. Yeah.
And just having some kind of, when you put your words into a song, one, it gets attention. So it's going to get your child's attention, like, who is this lady singing over here? But then also, it's easier for our brains to process that information, because it's not just the speech center that's working. There's other areas of the brain that are working
Cool.
to get that language. So it might be processed, more efficiently when it's sung.
Yeah.
That's another reason to sing in those little jingles.
Definitely. And that makes me think, how songs get stuck in our head, especially ones we hear over and over again. Then in the future, maybe if you're not there to help with the transition and they're like, the teacher's like, it's time to clean up, then they're thinking in their mind, oh, clean up. And that triggers a little memory where that song comes to the top of their mind and they're able to kind of self transition, because they're thinking it now and they have ownership of it.
Yeah, it creates a coping skill and
Yeah.
a tool for them to use when
Mhm.
you're not there.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool.
So we were talking about how it's difficult for kids to self-regulate. And so that can be emotional, self-regulation, but it can also be a sensory, a sensory need. Our kids, they are building up that ability to balance their sensory system too. So that can be vestibular, that's knowing where your head is in space. If we don't know where our head is in space, we're not going to feel very grounded. And that's not going to make for a good transition no matter what.
Wow.
And then also the proprioceptive system. So that's knowing where our body is in space, our joints. And if we don't know where our body is and we don't know where our head is, I'm not going to feel very comfortable to be moving somewhere else,
Yeah.
So sometimes with some kids, that should be a focus before you transition. So you get them grounded in their own bodies, and then it'll make for just a much more peaceful transition. You kind of have to know your kid and tell, is this a emotional issue of why we can't transition right now, or is it a sensory system that they just don't feel grounded enough in their body to move forward? So one idea with vestibular inputs, that's kind of knowing where your head is in space. You can hang backwards, like off of a bed or off of a couch or a bench. So that kind of gives some input to the inner ear and to the head.
Yeah.
Do you want to give any more
Yeah, that makes sense. So how would that play out, if they're playing with toys? Would they be able to, how do you facilitate that as,
Transition into the transition.
yeah, transition to the transition? How do you do that? What's it look like in real life, I guess?
Yeah. So again, I would try to make it fun.
Yeah.
And often kids' bodies know what they need.
Hmm.
And so they might be like sensory seeking in some way, um, whether it's like jumping up and down or like running into you. That's a kind of a proprioceptive
Hmm.
need where they like need to feel where their body is in space.
Yeah.
The kids do that. They just like ram into me. I'm like, okay, you need some input. um, so in real life, we could use the marching song, the walking, 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 to get to a couch,
Hmm.
and then running, running, running. Now we stop. Let's lay on the couch. Let's
Yeah.
hang backwards.
Yeah.
Make it
Could you
something
could you
silly.
also like take their hands and do like circles, and you kind of go in circles and then have them lean
Yeah,
back. And so then they're like, you're holding onto their hands and they're leaning back, and then you bring them back up, and then, you know,
absolutely.
make that kind
Spinning gives the most vestibular input.
of song.
So thinking of songs that are spinning, you could use that same song like spinning, spinning,
Yeah.
spinning, spinning, round and round,
Yeah.
spinning, spinning. Just keep
I love
repeating.
it.
Now we stop. It's
Mhm.
important to go the other direction after that. So you get on.
Oh, yeah.
So totally like making it just a fun activity.
Yeah.
And if that, I mean, that could take maybe 2 minutes. And if
Mhm.
that's going to help with transition, those 2 minutes I think are worth it,
Mhm.
that rather than a tantrum. And then generally you should follow up with proprioceptive input. So that's like, feeling where your joints are and your muscles and everything. And that could be with jumping,
Mhm.
marching,
Yeah.
clapping. Um, you could do that row your boat, hold on to each other's hands and row back and forth. So you got
Yeah.
vestibular and proprioceptive input there.
That's so cool. I like that.
Yeah, and you can even work in the transition song in there as you're rowing. We're
Yeah.
going to the doctor. We're going to the doctor. Here we go. Here we go. Something like that. It's just kind of a there's no wrong way to sing. Your kids don't know. They
Yeah.
don't.
You don't have to be a composer or like think it out ahead of time. Yeah.
Right.
And the more that you have that rhythm in your head, the more you can just put words. And even if it doesn't rhyme, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
The important part is the language that you're using and that they can relate to that language. So using words that they know or words that are just above the level that they know. Yeah.
Yeah. So just take a nursery rhyme that you know and
Hmm.
put in the words you need to. It's that easy.
That's really cool. And I can see how that would really help transition because they're already being active. And so they're already detached from what they were focusing on earlier. So it's going to make it easier for them to part with that toy or part with, the slide at the playground because you're already doing something that's fun, and it might be equally or more fun than what they were doing right before
Right.
that. So they'd be more likely to follow you without that resistance and the defensive, like, no, I want it my way, because
Yeah.
you're leading them in a fun way.
Yeah. And sometimes some of that battle for control,
Mhm.
I've noticed with my kids anyway, happens when I haven't spent as much time with them that day, like
Mhm.
really individual focused attention.
Right.
So even just those couple minutes of like, oh, mom's spending time with me, can kind of
Mhm.
soften them to be
Yeah,
receptive to what you're asking them to do.
that's so interesting. I love that you said that because maybe even one way to help them transition is if they are playing with blocks and they're just in the zone and they're really, creative with it and they're just focused, and you enter in and give them that attention. You play with them, you look at them in the eyes, you smile, you laugh, you're having fun. You're giving them that attention that it might be an attention thing. They might be seeking, like, I just crave this eye contact with mom and this closeness that we have when she's trying to move me from one thing to another. And, like I'm resisting. And so it lengthens the time that I have mom's attention on me when I cry, because she's going to be hovering right over me trying to get me out. So like kind of being proactive about that attention. If you feel like if it's an attention seeking kind of meltdown or tantrum where, they just miss you. So yeah, that's cool. What else? What other kinds of strategies can we use in our day-to-day life?
Well, I guess we've talked about several reasons really why kids might have
Mm-hmm.
difficulty in transition. Another might just be because flexible thinking is not developed yet. And flexible thinking is an executive functioning skill that we develop in this front part of our brain that actually isn't fully developed until we're a young adult.
Okay,
So
so
long ways to go.
it's developmentally appropriate to feel this transition tension. So it's normal for kids. Yeah, so it's not something that you should be freaked out like, oh, I'm the worst mom ever, or my child is gonna be crazy forever like this, so it's a normal stage in development.
If
Okay,
they didn't tantrum, then that would be a concern.
if they didn't tantrum, that would be a concern. That's so relieving. 'Cause then, you don't feel like the bad guy or, like
Exactly.
feeling. Okay.
Yeah, totally normal. So with the flexible thinking, it's just being able, really it's another word for transitioning or being able to problem solve an issue. Like if this thing doesn't work, what's another solution?
Okay.
That's just a skill that we need to develop over
Mm-hmm.
many, many years. So that might be one reason why transitioning is difficult.
I
So
mean, I
that,
still have trouble transitioning sometimes.
right?
Like if I'm focused, I really like to do some watercolor, like drawing and lettering. And so if I'm in the zone and it's, time to go somewhere, I still have those feelings of like, I don't want to, I don't want to, I want to finish this first. So, but we have developed those coping mechanisms and the logic to realize, okay, if I don't stop this now, I'm going to be late, or, the different higher thinking.
Right. And with kids, I mean, their sense of time isn't
It's
very
so
good.
abstract. Yeah, it's a really abstract concept.
Yeah. So that actually, when you do give those warnings, those 10, 5, 1 minute, you're also teaching them about the concept of time. You want
Mm-hmm.
to actually time it, you know? So, like,
Right.
I actually use a timer with my kids. Um,
Okay.
so they relatively within their system, they're gaining like a sense of time. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
1 minute, that means I don't have very much longer. You know,
Right.
so that takes time and consistency, as you said before. All these
Mm-hmm.
things you need to do several times to really see if they're going to work for your kid, because anything
Right.
new, as we said before, anything new might be a little difficult at first. Um,
Totally.
yeah. So,
Yeah, I'd love to share an example of a transition tool that I use when I'm in a speech therapy session. So my sessions are an hour long when I do home visits here locally. So normally 10 minutes before that hour is up, before the session even starts, like as I'm walking into this family's home, I'll set an alarm on my phone for 10 minutes before the session's up. And so that alarm, I'll show you what it sounds like. It sounds like,
that's my ringtone.
is it? Time's up. Yeah. So this is what plays. And the kids, like you said, the very first couple sessions, I tell the parents that this alarm is going to go off, and that's our signal to start wrapping things up, asking any final questions, cleaning up. And so the first couple of times, the child is like, either doesn't know what is happening or doesn't realize that sound is tied to a routine. But now, like when the kids I've been with them for several months or years even, I have one client who, when he hears this, he gets so excited. He's like, oh, Bell, and he starts signing Bell. And he said he knows now that it's from my phone because I started to bring it out and press stop. And so he's starting to sight read and he wants to press the stop button. And so that helps him transition from what we were doing to, oh, he hears the bell, and that's external. I don't have to say, it's time to stop, and I'm not the bad guy. It's the bell.
Right.
Yeah. It's the
Yeah.
bell, kind of like a school bell when you're transitioning from math to science to PE. Like you hear that ding, and you know it's time. It's just that external factor.
Yeah, exactly. And you can use music
Mm-hmm.
to do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the bad guy.
Right. Exactly. So that's something that you could say, oh, that, even for your day-to-day routines, you could just go ahead in the mornings and set the alarms on your phone when you know it's time to leave for the pediatrician, or you know it's time to go to the park. Like that's a fun thing. You can still have a transition song or something that plays on your phone, and you can be like, guess what that means? And so you can prepare them to transition by having that external outside of yourself, so that you can rely on it, one, and you can blame it on
Exactly.
the song, like, oh, it's time to go, like we have to follow what it's telling us. So
Yeah, and going off of that, if you have a song, um, you can play a song and say, okay, when this song is done, then it's time
yeah.
to leave. So it's a time limit. Generally,
Mhm.
songs are like 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes long.
That's so great.
Right. So you have 3.5 minutes to
I love that.
allow them to transition. And when that song is done, that's when we leave. So
That's
again, song is the bad guy. It's not me.
Yeah.
Oh, the song's done. Man, I'm
Oh
not going
man.
to.
We're on the same team. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And
Okay.
if it's a preferred song,
Mhm.
um, then that can help. Actually, when we just even anticipate songs that we enjoy, dopamine can be released,
Ooh.
which is kind of a feel good, happy chemical that motivates us. So
Yeah.
that if you're going into, say you were going into a grocery store, you could put this song on first as you're sitting in the car, and
Oh.
get in a good mood, get
Yeah.
happy, and then go into the grocery store. So you're going in with a positive mood.
Oh.
I already knew, like, okay, when this song is done, that means we get out of the car. So it
Mhm.
can help kind of set up for success a little bit more.
Yeah. And then even when we get back in the car after we're done grocery shopping, we can listen to it again. So then the transition from the store and all the things that they want, that like the candy and everything, you can use that song as a motivator. Like, let's go back to the car so we can listen again. So
Yeah, yeah.
cool.
I think I wanted to talk about just kind of how music creates a routine and a
Yeah.
structure. We've kind of hinted at it, but I think when we use that music consistently,
Mhm.
it can help to lessen anxiety. My kids, as soon as I start saying marching, march, they know
Yeah.
right then. Okay, it's time for us to go somewhere.
I,
Yeah, yeah. So using that with
Mhm.
music consistently can help to lessen anxiety and stress,
Yeah.
and create a routine where there's not that uh, that stress response.
Right.
It's just oh, something's happening, let me be alert instead of let me be scared.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that even. I've been to a conference recently, and there was a list of the classes and the whole schedule that I went through, and I highlighted. I knew it was coming next. I knew when lunch was. I knew, if I needed to bring a snack to hold me over until whatever. And so I can't imagine if I didn't have that. And all of a sudden, I'm like trying to see and learn from different people's cues, or if someone came in and was like, Adrienne, it's time to go to this one, I was like, but I just got into this class, I'm learning right now. And so I would be stressed and defensive and like, no, I want to stay here. And so having something to where it's predictable, like when this is going to happen, what's coming. I like the first then statement, like first we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. So then okay, right now I can be present here because I know what's coming next. I don't have to worry about
Mhm.
that. Yeah. And so it kind of breaks that stress loop. Just you can snap out of it when you know what to expect. And it's interesting that as adults, we're like that too. We need to know what's coming up and what to expect and how to cope with transitioning from things that we like to don't like. Yeah.
Absolutely. Going back to something you had said before about often the transitions are difficult when we're coming from a preferred activity, to
Mhm.
a non-preferred activity. So I think it's important, again, to stress making the transition fun.
Mhm.
So that's going to lessen the dread of that change, or
Mhm.
having to go to something you don't prefer. But using music is going to possibly release that dopamine I mentioned before. So dopamine is a chemical that um, activates in the reward center of our brain. You might have heard, other listeners might have heard that before,
Mhm.
where anything that activates that reward center, our brain wants to do again.
Mm.
So, so when we listen to music, that reward center is activated,
Yeah.
especially if it's preferred music.
Yeah.
So if we bring that preferred music into a transition, it's actually literally going to change the way our body responds to that transition.
Cool. Chemically even.
Yeah,
Wow. That's
exactly.
fascinating.
Yes, so
That's
that can make it much less painful for
yeah.
the
Yeah.
parent and
And
the child.
it starts to make a pattern in their mind when they realize, oh, it feels good when I listen to this song, and therefore it also feels good when I stop doing this and shift my attention to something different.
Yeah, so you're
Oh.
setting them up. Each time you have that positive transition, you're
Mhm.
setting it up for the next time to be just a little more easily. Usually, not always. Kids
Yeah.
are very unpredictable,
Yeah.
but but generally, it really helps each time you have a success in that transition.
Mhm.
Using music, it just gets easier.
Yeah, and you can praise them for that too. You can be like, I saw that you were playing with your Legos, but I love that when I played this song, you just came right with me and we were able to go to the playground, like that was great. Good job, high five, kind of thing. All right, so we will recap what we learned today with Noel. She taught us a song that works for her kids. It's the marching, marching, or the walking, walking song. And then she told us about how choice making, letting them have a say in it, making it personal, making the songs have their name in it so they feel like it's their song, it's a song about them. We talked about a cleanup song and how that can help with transitioning from having your toy room be really messy to clean, and the importance of teaching kids to transition and that it's a normal part of development, and the kids are becoming externally regulated. You are the person that regulates them to independently and internally regulated. So that transition is not something that comes easily. And so it's all, their brain is working to help them remember coping skills that they've learned. And Noel also talked about the sensory system and vestibular input, proprioceptive input, and how that can sometimes help them transition. If they don't feel grounded, it's going to be hard to get them to move from where they are. This all increases flexibility. It snaps them out of that defense mode, like I don't want to doing something else that maybe is not preferred. And also, we learned about dopamine and how actually music can change the chemicals in your body, and it can make it more of a nice experience than if you were to just be like, all right, it's time to go. Listen to me. I'm the parent. So I also wanted to mention that Noelle and I did a video collaboration a couple months ago, and we talked about her book that she's written. This is another way to help transition. So it's a kid's guide to relaxation and sleep. And so this has great illustrations. I'll show you. And music tips, and there's even music in the back for how to help your child to relax first and then use music to help them calm and go to sleep. So that transition from being awake to sleep is sometimes really challenging as a parent. And so this book I highly recommend, and we did a whole video about it and the benefits of this. So I recommend that you check this video out after you watch this one. So, Noel, where can people find you? You're doing a lot of cool things. You make videos as well. Where can people learn more about you and follow along with what you're doing?
Yeah, you can head to my website, amusictherapy.com, or come follow me on Facebook. I'm always updating with some external cool research and things that I see
Mhm.
online, as well as we have a blog. And you can search Anderson Music Therapy on Facebook,
Okay.
and you'll find me.
That's great. I'll provide the links below in this video. And then if you're new to my videos, I'm Adrienne. I'm a speech language pathologist, and I make videos for parents of toddlers, and I also teach a sign language class online. So I have classes for parents and resources, and those can be found at learnwithadrienne.com. Noel, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been so fascinating, and I've learned so much from you, and I love some of the songs that you introduced us to, and I'm looking forward to trying these out with the clients that I see and my own kids in the future.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right, bye.